Marinowski's here tonight. I thought I saw Alderman Deskin was here. Alderman Colorelli. He looks like you're taking off, Pete? Oh, okay, hanging out. So a few folks here tonight, Pins. I appreciate everybody coming out, I really do. Some of you guys were here last town hall meeting. The questions might be different, but I'm going to do the same presentation. I basically wanted to do it twice because I wanted to give people an opportunity. Sometimes you can't make it out on a Saturday, or sometimes you can't make it out in the evening. So it's essentially the same presentation, so forgive me on that one. But for those who were here last time. But in any case, I just want to take a few minutes to just talk about things that are going on, give you the opportunity to ask me questions, share concerns, gripes, complaints, anything like that. It's a great opportunity to do so. So I'll go ahead and jump in and just go through some things quickly. As you know, I've mentioned getting the Lockport back on its feet, because we felt like it's been economically depressed for a long time, and you know, we've had some struggles getting that puzzle back in place again. There's a number of pieces that we have to put in place, and I've kind of simplified it by breaking those pieces down into 5 categories. There was infrastructure, there was branding, there was housing, industrial, and there was retail. And those were the 5 pieces I've kind of simplified this presentation into. The first thing council and I did for this last, and staff worked very hard to do, was kind of come up with a capital improvement plan. You know, we looked at a number of plans and studies that have been done over the years, and I said, look, we need to make some decisions on what projects need to be done, what can we do, what's necessary to do, and we kind of picked from all these plans that were out there and put together a 6-year capital improvement plan. I wanted to do it within the budget and the revenues that we have now. And so this is what this came up with. And I think it's very strong. Amy worked very hard putting this together for us, our engineer. She's here tonight. And, you know, another thing we did too as a council was we changed our construction season. Normally we had a fiscal year that went from June till June, which was tough because by the time we passed the budget and we knew what contracts we could fund, we were already in the construction season pretty much started. So we were kind of the tail end of what vendors we could choose from. Also, they'd already scheduled projects in other cities. So now, with our budget being passed in January, we have a lot more lead time to be able to go out and get projects scheduled. So we should start seeing construction projects happen much earlier, more in the spring instead of the middle of the summer. So we should hopefully be able to complete more projects before, you know, it gets cold again. Right now, we've got a number of projects that are sitting, you know, 3/4 finished, and that's problematic. So hopefully this changing of the fiscal year will help that. I've asked Amy and staff also to increase project oversight. You know, there was a couple projects that we had. Sometimes they're state funded and they have their own kind of watchdogs on it. We're trying to implement some planning on how we kind of overlook some of those projects. Some of it will be with consultants because, for instance, some of the state projects have so much paperwork that's involved. We can task other people with that so that we can make sure that we're out keeping an eye on project. And if somebody's not showing up for, you know, if they're not there on a day, we can have somebody who calls up and say, what's going on? Why are you guys out? And get some answers quickly and expedite things. But the whole capital improvement plan is online. You can see it at cityoflockport.org. And, you know, it tells you when streets are going to be repaired or, you know, what date is coming up. So, commend staff for all the hard work they did on this. Another thing that we're looking at doing is State Street. A while back, IDOT came to us and they wanted to remove our on-street parking to create turn lanes, which is fine. Turn lanes would be quite helpful, but IDOT's whole view is to get cars as fast as they can from point A to point B, and we're trying to make a more pedestrian downtown, friendly downtown. So we really pushed back. We hired our own engineering firm to give alternative plans, and we've kind of come up with a compromise where we can keep the on-street parking, and IDOT will have turn lanes. We'll have narrower lanes, though. That's how we make room. But the nice thing is, as we pushed back and forth on this, IDOT eventually just agreed. Instead of just restriping, they said, you know what? We're responsible for all those vaults in the sidewalk. Some of you may not know what these are, but underneath our sidewalks on State Street are empty voids that you can access from the buildings, and they've been very problematic over the years because they either collapse or they have to be filled. Well, they are actually technically in IDOT's right of way, so they agreed, you know what, we'll just rip up everything. Let's just tear it up from 8th to 10th. We'll fill the vaults, we'll get it all fixed, That way we'll level the sidewalks, we stop having those, especially on the east side of the street. And while we're doing that, while they're doing that, we'll be able to fix the water main issues that are under there. So it'll be a nice big project, but it's gonna be disruptive. In fact, just before I was up here, I reconvened the Downtown Development Committee to talk about how we prepare for this, getting the business owners to know what's happening, to make sure that they're taken care of, to make sure that, you know, how do we deal with parking, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. And also as we put the street back together, what's it gonna look like? Now's our opportunity to not just pour cement and call it a day, but this is the time to choose materials, to make a downtown that's friendly, that feels inviting. This is our opportunity to pick materials, and so it's part of what we're doing with that. As far as other infrastructure thing too to prepare for this, the Hamilton Street parking lot, currently we own a chunk of it, but the forward part and the alleyway is owned by the property owners there. And unfortunately, none of them ever take care of it. The alleyway is a terrible mess. It's very hard to get in and out of. You blow your tires out. So what we proposed was, if they are agreeable to give us their easements, we will level that whole parking lot, make it one giant parking lot. We'll make the alleyway a pedestrian walkway only, so people can park all the way up to the buildings. You know, we can maintain the plowing of that now. It'll add 30 parking spaces if we do this. So we're pretty close to that. We're working on, you know, most of the property owners, all but one actually, was agreeable to this. We're still working on the last one. But, you know, we're trying to get them to see the benefit of this. It's like, look, a cleaned up, well-lit, level parking lot as opposed to that bombed out, you know, place that it is now. So, but this will also help prepare, because we want to do this year to prepare for the 2017 reconstruction of State Street. So this is part of how we want to take care of the property owners. Oh, sorry, Chuck. This is how we want to take care of the property owners, or the business owners, so that, you know, make it easier on them during this construction time. Some other things too, you know, the high bridge traffic is always tough. You know, we've done a couple things working with the schools, asking them if they can, when they're coming east over the bridge, bringing Crest Hill kids, if they could take Commerce or Canal Street instead of stopping at the bridge and opening their doors. That's one of the things that backs trucks up or traffic up. IDOT has agreed to try to do some rerouting too, so they don't have to stop at the railroad tracks. So those are some minor fixes. The real big fix, of course, is to get the Bruce Road Caton Farm Bridge open. It's been in the works for years. Everybody agrees it needs to be done, but it's a $300 million project. How do you fund that? So I've asked, you know, our new attorney, Tom Thanis, who's here tonight. Tom's a municipal rock star. If you're in that world, you'd know his name. He's a great guy. Really glad to have him on board. You know, I asked him to help me try to organize maybe a little coalition of local mayors that we could start really addressing this Caton Farm Bruce Road extension. See if we can't move it out from a 30-year down the road project and bring it into maybe 10 years and start putting some heat in Springfield to let them know it's a priority, because this bridge is just backed up. It's very difficult to get over the bridge. So that's kind of a long-term thing we started working on. Gauger Road, I mean, that's been in people's minds lately because it's been closed down. I apologize for that. It's kind of, it has to do with some property condemnation that's in the county. We don't have full jurisdiction on this road, and that's why it's closed at the moment. So it really has to do with the traffic signal, and the county's not willing to open the road up because they feel like without a traffic signal there, it'll just be too dangerous. So we're trying to get this moving forward as quickly as possible. It's one of those inconveniences that nobody likes. But once it's open, it will be very nice. We'll have a thorough road through Gauger. Some public work services, you know, that the council and I have worked on. You know, we've brought back some branch pickup. It's not every week, but at least we do it twice a season because we have a contract with Waste Management, but it's hard to cut those branches into 40-inch strips. I mean, it's a pain in the neck. So at least we'll bring in the branch truck out twice a year. So, you know, in the spring and in the fall. We started downtown snow removal, which hopefully has been helpful for some of the, it hasn't been so bad this year, but last year it's like, you know, where do you put the snow? One guy shuffles it to the neighbor's, you know, front. Where do you put it? So we've been working on that. We've been doing in-house tree removal. We used to, you know, farm it all out to, you know, Homer and other places, but we've bought our own truck now because we had to get rid of all those emerald ash borers. So We're doing a lot more in-house now, so that's good news. So we've been trying to increase our public works services. The next piece of the puzzle I want to talk about a little bit is branding. I've always felt that when you know, I say this all the time, but you go north of 55 or east of Wolf Road and nobody even knows where Lockport is. That's difficult when we're trying to attract, you know, residents, or we're trying to attract businesses, or we're trying to attract, you know, restaurants or whatever it is, if, out of sight, out of mind. And so Lockport has not had a good presence outside. So one of the things we did was we put a lot of marketing materials together. We started having a presence at the ICSC conference. That's where all the brokers who represent retailers and such go. But I also wanted to have good information. I felt like none of the information we had was very good, and that's why we brought on the retail coach. It's a consultant who specializes in these things, and they really helped us get solid information. One of the things that was important was just our retail trade area. You know, when the retailers kind of type in Lockport in their computer in Minnesota or Minneapolis or wherever they're at, you know, a pin goes in downtown Lockport and draws a 5-mile circle. And unfortunately, most of the half of that circle is on the other side of the bridge. And that's not really accurate to our trade area, because none of us want to drive over that bridge. Most of our trade area is from the bridge going east. And so knowing what the specifics are and how we actually commute as opposed to what a map says, that's helped our trade area a lot. And this is far more accurate, and it also shows what the retail voids are. Because I remember having a conversation with Hobby Lobby, and they're like, why would we build a Hobby Lobby here? There's one in Crest Hill. I'm like, you might as well be China, man. It's way out there. And so those kinds of things are important, that they understand what our true trade area map is and what our retail voids are. And also our demographic numbers. You know, this changes our demographic numbers. Our average household income is $96,000 in this trade area. That's as good as Orland Park, right? So this idea that we're, you know, not a town that can support retail is ludicrous. And so these kind of numbers are very important. The retail coach came out and gave a presentation about some of these things. If any of you saw it, even I said it when they were doing the presentation, they're like, we need more restaurants. I'm like, tell me something I don't know, right? That's all stuff that we all know. But this is the information, this is the meat of what we brought these guys on board for, was to get us this information. And now they also act as our own broker. They too are going out and approaching the retailers and such to help them, which facilitates the brokers that are representing the properties that are here now. So I want to make sure that we're doing our job as well and not just relying on other people. So that was part of bringing in the retail coach. We've also made sure that we're going to do a branding campaign this year on WLS. You know, we had ads in West Suburban Living. We had, you know, and part of when we did this was I wanted to make sure that I attracted people, get Lockport on people's minds, but I had to make sure that I had a reason for people to come here. You know, I can't just say, hey, you know, come to downtown Lockport and go shopping, right? Because there's nothing it's kind of sparse. So I put a lot of focus on our festivals last year to give people a reason. And, you know, when Old Canal Days, you know, we've been trying to reconfigure it to make it, you know, and, you know, this Old Canal Days committee, we met again today. A lot of good people volunteering, working hard on it, and we're trying to make it better every year. Susan is here tonight. She's been really good with the craft show and helping with an art. No, sorry, I was supposed to call it craft show. We're calling it the Artisans and Antiquity Show. She's upscaling it. So those are all good things. And but you know what? The good thing, when I started putting ads in West Suburban Living for Old Canal Days last year, when I was doing the history tour, I'd ask people in the wagon. I'm like, who here's from Lockport? And there might be a hand went up. But this time, you know, there were people from Western Springs, there were people from Glen Ellen, there were people from all over Chicagoland, which was exactly what we were trying to do. Get people to come down here and discover the city for the first time. And it's important. It's not just a matter of getting people to visit. It's like, you know what? Some guy sitting in there with his wife and his kid, that's a broker who represents, you know, Metro Properties. You know, I mean, it's important to make sure that we get people and awareness out here. So we made sure we publicized Old Canal Days. We put a volunteer committee together for the Summer Art Series. Their ultimate goal is to have an event every weekend throughout the summer. They started off slow this year, and they didn't want to take off more than they can chew, but we raised money and funded those fun sculptures that were out there. You know, they're on the Lincoln Landing, out by the park. There was exhibits in the Gaylord building. There was a gala. It was a lot of fun, and once again, for that, we even had crowds come from, I had people from Madison and Indianapolis come out. It was a lot of fun. Summer Art Series Committee's working again this year to do things. This year, it's going to be called the Superheroes of Innovation. The library's involved now. I've got businesses involved. One of the things they're going to be doing are like these superhero cards of our local innovators. I could talk for an hour on it, but I don't want to waste everybody's time. But I'm just going to say there's a lot of cool stuff coming up with the Summer Art Series. And if anybody is interested in being involved, please talk to me, because it's really all driven by volunteers. It's us. This is our town. And making it the best we can, it's really up to us. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be, Ben Benson. It's going to be us. So anybody who wants to get involved, please don't hesitate to talk to me, and we'll find there's lots of things that you can do to help. There's going to Comicopolis. The library's getting involved with Comicopolis. A Comic-Con they're going to do there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The Lockport Oolong Protectorate Society, that's their high tea. It's all kind of fun stuff coming up. So it's all, you can be part of any of these things. So that's the branding piece of the puzzle. Next piece of the puzzle is housing. When I first ICS retail conference I went to, and I would ask these guys, hey, how come I can't get, this particular business to come to town? They would all ask me the same question. Like, how many housing starts do you have? And I could only say a few. We didn't have a lot. One of the reasons our starts were slower than other towns around us was our tap-on fees were pretty high. They were much higher, about $10,000, $15,000 more. So council and I, we got together and we said, look, let's be competitive. So we lowered our tap-on fees, and housing starts have gone up. It went up 50% this year. We have a whole new development going up at 143rd Street. That's Class A apartment complex, which sometimes people roll their eyes or they get a little nervous when they hear apartments. This is a really nice complex. It's got a clubhouse, it's got a pool, it's got concierge service. It's a higher-end commuter-style apartment complex. It's very, very nice. And plus, on the outlots, there are spots for some retail, and there's a hotel office parcel pad there as well. And Ben and I have been starting to look at trying to get a smaller hotel out there, which would be great. Because even like the Summer Art Series, I had people come from out of town, but then they had to stay out of town, because we don't have a hotel facility. So this gives an opportunity to have that parcel ready to go vertical on something. So that's a good thing. The industrial piece of the puzzle. Along I-355, there is a whole bunch of zoning that is industrial. It's been like that for 25 years, and finally we're starting to see, it pay off. Industrial is great stuff. And a lot of people see these big buildings and they just think it's warehouses, but honestly, the buildings that have been going up have been true businesses that make stuff. I mean, Press Sense Printing is there, excellent. They do, they manufacture safety rail guards for equipment. It's just the nature of businesses, big boxes today. That's what it's like, a big square box that they do their stuff in. So it's not just all storage, which people seem to think it is. Costa Catering equipment's coming in, and they're still building. We've got a lot of buildings going up in ML. Panettone was just approved, and they have a corporate headquarters that is eyeballing the first building to go in there. And they've already got interest in a second building. And then the parcel just next to Panduit has also been industrial zone for 25 years, and we've just, they came before planning department last week. Who was it, Tandem, Pam, is that the name of them? Tandem Development came out, and they want to do a park too. And honestly, this stuff too is also important for getting our retail piece of the puzzle in place. Because even then, I was talking to Sweet Tomatoes. They asked me, what's your lunch crowd look like? Now I have a lunch crowd. When you get those industrial parks up, there's, hundreds of people there who want to eat lunch somewhere, and that's another piece of the puzzle to get what is, in my mind, the hardest nut to crack of all, which is the retail nut. And unfortunately, that's the one we want most. And so some of the issues that I found that we had was this orange block represents what was known as the Target Home Depot. It's also called Lockport Square. It's one right up by the highway that we've all been watching weeds grow for such a long time. Part of the problem was it was in foreclosure. When the economy collapsed, it's in foreclosure, and nothing can really happen until it gets out of foreclosure. Fortunately, about a year ago, we had an interested buyer, and it was GMX, the Janko Group, actually it was the Janko Group, wanted to buy it and start developing it. So that's great. That was exciting. The bit of bad news we had last December was then I get a call from Target, and they said that they weren't going to build. They wanted to sell their pad because they actually own a little chunk in the upper corner over there. And I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? I was very upset. I'm like, you guys have even you even know all the stuff that we've got going? We're moving forward with our housing starts, we're getting everything in order, and they're like, look, it has nothing to do with you. We lost $1 billion in Canada last year. We're in the middle of a credit card fiasco. They only built 5 stores in the nation last year. They used to build 50. So it was a real blow, and I thought it was going to screw up the whole deal. I was worried that the Janko Group was going to walk, but fortunately they bought the site as a whole anyway. And it's good. The good news is they put $700,000 of work into this lot over the summer. They put some infrastructure stuff in. They repaved the roads. They put lighting up. And now they're going to go vertical here in the spring with an outlot building. And that's going to be good. We'll have a, typical outlot vendors. There's a mattress place. There's a Domino's Pizza. I know that Kyle's really excited about that. And I know for us downtown, we're like, pizza. But you know what? If you live further east, it's not quite as dense with that kind of stuff. So, but in any case, the good news is we're going vertical with some stuff, and that's getting the momentum up, and it's important. And as far as Target goes, I actually had a conversation with them 2 weeks ago, and finally there's a designated person for the site. Every time we would talk, there'd be somebody different because they were firing people. You never talk to the same person twice up in Minneapolis. And I said, look, we sent them all this new information, our new demographics from the retail coach, all that information. We showed them the new business parks we're putting in, the new housing that's going up. I said, look, I'm going to give you one last pitch of why I think you should be here, because we really do want you to be here, and hopefully you'll change your mind. But if you don't, then you got to go. Just sell the lot and get out. Because honestly, I told them, you're kind of like holding the whole site ransom. I had another user that was interested in doing a movie theater with restaurant kind of thing, but they wanted to only buy 6 acres of Target's 12 acres, and Target's like, well, we want to sell the whole thing. I'm like, guys, stop making it difficult, please. So we kind of asked them to make some decisions here, one way or the other. So, in any case, we'll continue to do what we're doing, but at least we're going vertical now, and that's good news. The yellow patch up there is where Sherwin-Williams has been. That also was in foreclosure. A lot of people don't know that. And one of the reasons it was empty was they were asking $30 a square foot. That's pre-recession prices. Nobody's paying that. So now we had a new buyer, a new owner, and it's back down to $14 a square foot. Tasty Waffle submitted plans to go in, and the old CC's Pizza today. So there's some movement going on, which is good. And so we'll continue to push with our retail. I've asked also Ben and Pam and staff to start looking at all the other areas in town that are not incorporated yet, but are either empty lands or lands that I want us to start looking like, what is all the future possibilities for retail? I want to start thinking about it, because I feel like we have plenty of zoned industrial areas. I think we've got more than enough. I want to make sure that in the future we look forward to what is going to be zoned as that's not currently in the city, that can be zoned retail, and make sure that we have enough of that kind of stuff as well. Another thing, the Vols building, as you guys know, we cut a deal. David Mead was just here tonight. He's on the Downtown Development Committee. David Mead, the Mead family is who bought this building. I had the city buy it, a year ago. My plan was just to clean it up, put windows in it, so it stopped being a visual drag. It was an albatross around the neck of development in the downtown. But fortunately, soon after we did that, the Mead brothers came to us and said, look, we've been eyeballing this building for a long time. We'd love to do it, and we heard the city bought it. So I said, that's great. So I wanted to make sure it was going to be something that was good, because I've had people approach me with strip clubs, medicinal marijuana dispensary, Section 8 housing. I'm like, no, I got to feel comfortable with what you guys want to do. So after going back and forth with them for a while, they agreed to open a 2-level restaurant. There'll be apartments on the 3rd floor. The bottom floor will eventually be a walkout kind of tapas bar, martini place. They really want to be aggressive. I mean, we just met them again just half an hour ago. They want to be open with the 1st floor restaurant this June. So they really want to try to move forward quickly. So that's good news. Kind of a rendering of, they were open to restoring the cornice and stuff like that. So that's all great. Some other happenings going on. The police department, they've just done a wonderful job. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but 54% of our budget is the police department. It's not just some little offshoot that's on their own. It's a big part of who we are. And so wanted to make sure that the department was a community-oriented department. And they've done it. They've been a good job, but I wanted to make sure that we really drove this home. And Terrence Lemming, as our new police chief, has done a magnificent job helping with that. Some of the ways he's asked officers is to, do more, getting credit for contact, getting out of your squad car, going into a business and introducing yourself, and, even writing warning tickets as opposed to just, tickets right out of the gate, and just being able to interact with people. The presence at the schools has been upgraded because, part of what I wanted to make sure we had was, I don't want a police department that is an us versus them department. And I said, look, one of my goals, officers, is that everybody in town knows at least one officer's name. And so I was just at the Ludwig School a couple weeks ago where the officers had just done a program with the kids, a 6-week program with the 5th graders, and just the interaction between the officers and the kids was wonderful, and that's where they learn their names, that's where they get to know them. The new police dog, which has been very helpful actually with sniffing out things, they're pretty good, but it's also another community outreach tool. I want people to feel comfortable when they see the police, and they've done a wonderful job. Lockport Love, they started this charitable group. Terry Lemming did. It's wonderful. I mean, they've just been magnificent. So I've really liked to see all the things that have been going on. Just some other things, working with Lamont to get a bike path connection. A lot of people don't know you get stuck where the refiner is, so we gotta beat up Pete at Citgo, tell him to open that up for us. I know everybody talks about increasing Metro service. Every day we're a day closer. Romeoville has been approved to build their own station, which is good news, bad news for Lockport. The good news is the more people that add to that commuter line, the more open Metro is to adding schedules. We will lose some people from our parking, there's no doubt, from our parking lot, but I think it'll be a long-term gain. It's like having multiple restaurants in the downtown. The more the merrier, actually, because it becomes a destination. So the more that this corridor becomes something that users need, and we've been working with Dan Lipinski. He's been working very hard. He's our congressman to help increase the schedule. We'll probably get at least one more morning train and an early afternoon return. It's not great, but there's some other logistical problems that make it tough. But we continue to work on it. We're sister cities now with Asiago. It's been another community volunteer-driven project. The Pastoris came to me and said, look, we got a lot of relatives there. In fact, there's Francisco Pastori, I think he's on the city council in Asiago. So it was great. It's that's official now. Apparently we did something no other sister city's done. We did our signing online with the Skype call, so they had on their monitors there's City Hall, and we did our, I didn't know it was first. I didn't know I'm supposed to go to Asiago for this. I really screwed up, but but we did it online. It was really fun. And so I know Cornola Travel, they've been organizing an Asiago trip. The Park District's going to try to organize an overseas trip to Asiago as well. So it should be fun, and high school groups and stuff, it's all part of what it's about. So art space, we've been looking at, there's a building over here north of the Gaylord that's just in bad shape. It's really not good for much of anything because it has no parking, it's terrible access. We had a group come in that's called Art Space that helps redevelop buildings, and that's been an interesting project. Maybe it can happen, maybe not. But like I said, I try to put as many irons in the fire as possible to get things turned around. The Heritage Village, are going to be moving the guard shack. Heritage Village, the old guard shack from the Chevron property. The foundation is in. So we continue to build that space up as a wonderful little destination. This, ultimately, the Historical Society would like to see as a visitor center. But there'll be some photographs and stuff in there showing what the old Chevron or the old Texaco plant used to look like. So that should be interesting. But part of that whole thing with the Heritage Villages, we get it cleaned up and spruced up, is really trying to create a connection between that parking lot at 2nd Street and the Lincoln Landing. We're working with the Park District to trying to get some kind of park just south of the Heritage Village where the old boatyard is, as I work to try to get art space in the long brick building. Ultimately, I'm trying to close that so it's one long, fun corridor that you can walk and it's pedestrian fun, and it really closed the gap to make that just a real dynamic space. A couple people came to me and asked me, hey, can't you get the Roxy Theater open? And I'm like, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. You put a business plan together, you form a committee, and I'll approach Trinity with it. And they did. And a group of citizens put together some great ideas and some sketches and drawings, and I went to Trinity Services with them, and we presented. You know, for those of you who don't know, Trinity owns it. They've owned it for 20, 30 years. They're a mental health facility. They use the Roxy like on Wednesday nights so that their clients can go and kind of socialize in an atmosphere that's controlled and they feel comfortable. But it's such an underutilized building. So I said, look, if you guys are only using it on Wednesday, can we use it on a Friday or Saturday and do some events? And they love the idea. So we did a couple tentative things over the summer. It's probably at least 6 movies over the summer, a couple other events. And now Trinity's ready to put some real money into it. They know that they have to fix the facade. It's falling apart. So they're going to put probably $50,000 or $60,000 into it this spring. And then we're looking at another $200,000 to do the inside, but that's Trinity's money that they're putting into it. And I called, after I heard about the Joliet fiasco with their marquee, I called Mr. Zerkes. I said, listen, man, you can call this thing the Zerkes Theater for all I care. $350,000 will revamp this place, man. He's like, well, you're like the 80th guy to call me, so that didn't go anywhere. But in any case, we'll try to find ways to help them raise the money. But at least they've put their eye back on it, and they're very willing to open it up and do things for the community. So that's fun. But all those, bottom line, those are all part of the pieces of the puzzle that we need to put together to really get Lockport, back on the map, back developed, and back moving forward. And I think with staff and council, I think we've done a lot in the last 20 months or so, 22 months. So we'll continue to work hard on it. Just quickly before we get to questions, some of the challenges, we're still playing catch up. Other towns are ahead of us with their retail development. Some of the reason is they already have their big anchors. They already have their Target. They already have their Home Depots, and those things are really what are the catalysts for the other junior anchors. And we don't have our big anchors, so that is our challenge, is playing catch up. We'll continue to be aggressive as we can, and that's how we attract the quality retail. The other challenge we're going to have is sticking to the CIP plan, the capital improvement plan. We made a 6-year plan. Some of that would involve state money. We looked at all of our sources of revenue. There's no doubt that Springfield's going to have to do some hacking and slashing. I don't fault Governor Rauner. He's got a hard choices to make. So will our CIP turn in from a 6-year to an 8-year? Possibly. But so the trick is for us to stay as tight to that schedule as we possibly can, knowing what cuts are probably going to come out of Springfield. So, but we'll see. That's yet to be seen. The Infrastructure Coalition, that's kind of what I was talking about with the high bridge earlier, the Bruce Road, Caton Farm Bridge, setting something like that up. And then just, making sure we continue to build community. I want to make sure that, I've seen a lot of positive steps. I've seen a lot of folks want to get involved. But making sure that we continue to make people proud, to live in Lockport and be part of it, and not roll our eyes about Lockport. I think everyone in this room knows that, agrees with me, this could be the greatest city in the southwest suburbs. We have everything in place to be that. We have an old downtown that's unique. We have a wonderful high bridge. We've got great transportation connections. We have ability to have great retail. We've got good housing. We have every reason to be so. So together, I hope we can continue to move forward in that direction. So that said, once again, I'll give you my last pitch for you can't make a difference unless you get involved. Anybody who ever wants to volunteer or help out with anything, please don't hesitate to call me, and we'll find a space. Because really, it's look, I'm just you who ran for mayor. I was tired of seeing things felt like in a quagmire, so I said, you know what, let's just throw our hat in the ring and try to be part of it. As mayor, it's just one level up, I guess, from, it's just a little more intense volunteer is what it comes down to, I guess you could say. But it's all the volunteers that make a difference. So that's a quick presentation. Please, I want to open up for questions, concerns, other things that maybe I didn't cover that you want to ask about. Please don't hesitate to ask me anything. That's what I'm here for. Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't here in the beginning. Did you talk about Connect Systems at Streit Mall there and the future of that at all?
No, I didn't talk about kinetic systems. The question was the strip mall kind of north of Archer Avenue. That's a great question. You know, honest to goodness, been so focused on, like, you know, up by the highway and some of the other things. I always felt like Archer Avenue was going to be, all right, probably the next mayor is going to deal with that one, right? But the truth was, staff and I, we just had some new interests over there. We realized, look, we're going to have to come up with a little better plan on how we deal with that corridor, because it's not going to be pushed off. People are interested in it. So we need to kind of put our eyes back on that as well. So I haven't had a lot of focus on that just yet, but staff and I agree, just like last week, that we need to, because
No one's showed any interest in it at all?
there are people. Susan herself actually showed interest in it. She wanted to open up a kind of her antiquities place that she sells stuff. It's really wonderful things, but the owner, he didn't want to, it was hard. There's so many things that go into development. The owner didn't want to sell the property because he opened Barrett's Hardware, if you've seen that over there. So that space wasn't available any longer. There was another space that was available, but it needed to have sprinklers put in because it was going to be repurposed, and that's like $300,000. Nobody's got $300,000, you know? So there's fire codes and new things that make stuff kind of difficult. So, well, even the guy who owns that 2-level building right by Smith Road, and it kind of stopped, you know, he rebuilt it and it stopped. He came to me the other day and he's like, hey, look, you know, I want to put a restaurant in there, but I need to have a giant electric billboard to help me. And I'm like, dude, I don't want a giant billboard. Electric billboard? It'd be horrible. So, you know, this is where I sat down with staff. I'm like, look, guys, we got to come up with a plan, because I can't have somebody coming in there with a, you know, I don't want anything goes over there. So that's, we are going to focus on that here in the next couple of months. Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I think it will help. They're really nice. Algonquin put those apartments in, and they're really picky. This is the only apartment complex they've allowed for, like, ever. And so they're really nice, and I do think it will help really open up the entryway to that corridor. There's no doubt about it. And that's another reason why it's like, man, we got to get on this 171 corridor, so. Yes?
What about Corwin's? You know, I go down there, I'm not sure what's going on there.
Corwin's, some of you may have followed it in the paper. The Salvation Army wanted to go into Corwin's. Because it's resale, it requires a special use permit. So we had the ability to say yes or no. We don't always have that ability, by the way. A lot of people think, like, you know, you sit up here like a dictator and you can say yes or no to things. Not really. Only a couple things you can do that for, and resale shops are one of those. So we voted it no, because my feeling was, you know, one, according to our Dakota plans about how we're trying to redevelop that corridor, we felt like density of resale shops and the visibility of that corridor, that it would have been problematic. So it's empty right now because Corwin's, they had their own internal problems. But we're trying to work with Bob to help him, he's the owner, to find ways to get that storefront filled up. I know it's a tough one for him because it's not right on the highway where most people want to be. And so we need to continue to find ways to help him. And one of the problems he has is he doesn't have any sprinklers in that building either. And so we have been working with running some water mains for the residential behind it, but we decided to kind of move that up in our CIP because that water main will help Bob be able to sprinkle his building. So we're trying to do whatever we can to make it work, because it's a big part of, you know, our corridor there. So that's kind of the status of what's going on. We're seeking something for that. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, it was Bob? I haven't seen. Okay, sorry.
The 159th Street widening, that's going to impact Lockport. Now, when will the actual construction start? I'm thinking, you know, about